welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight and spending your Thursday evening here with us. Welcome to the Breaking and Entering Culturally Diverse Emerging Artists Panel Discussion and Networking event. So we've got all of you here tonight, and we've also got some audiences joining us online. So a big welcome to all of you here. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on unceded Ngunnawal land. I'd like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people who are the traditional custodians of this land where we meet, learn, play, create, and tell stories on. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and also acknowledge their continued contributions to the culture and the life of this city that we have the privilege to call home. And also I'd like to welcome any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders here joining us tonight for this evening. And I want to also say that this is a living culture and it continues to grow and develop, and acknowledge that this ongoing connection that we have to land, waters, and community that endures today. And this is why we are here, community. So thank you again for joining us here today and to explore what it truly means to be a culturally diverse emerging artist here in Australia as well as in Canberra. What does it mean in a regional area? So you might be a migrant artist who's just arrived and is trying to establish your practice here in Australia or in Canberra. Or you might be an established practitioner who's here to connect with community. Or you might be an artist who's here to connect with the community, make some friends. And we really appreciate all of you being here tonight because that's what all this is about. My name is Piumi. I'm a theatre practitioner from Sri Lanka, and I moved from Sri Lanka to Australia in 2022 at the height of a socio-political and economic crisis in Sri Lanka. So myself and Maleen, who's our creative producer behind the scenes today, we moved in 2022 in a very difficult and turbulent time, and it was like whiplash when we arrived in Sydney in Christmas, and everything was normal after we had come from what was months and months of protests, violence in the country. And, there was sudden whiplash, and it was a strange, difficult journey, but also we feel so grateful to be here. And part of what, in that process of arriving, we feel like we arrive and it takes so much time to just arrive. And then you have to emerge and then establish. And that's a hard journey, and it's a journey that we couldn't have achieved if not for the friends we met along the way. So having learned from our own journey, we recently moved to Canberra, which I must say has been such a warm and welcoming place. Everyone has been nothing but welcoming since we arrived here. And so I'm also grateful for that. And this is also why we are here, to look at the kind of communities that connect us and allow us to be artists. And as artists, we also know that sustaining ourselves is tough as an artist. We are always striving, whether you're a migrant artist or whether you're an independent artist from any background. Sustaining yourself as an artist is a struggle. And this is why we come together. So again, very grateful to have all of you here. And also a shout out to Diversity Arts Australia, who has supported this event. So this is part of Diversity Arts Australia's Shifting the Balance of Leadership program. And for those of you who haven't connected with Diversity Arts Australia, it's the national organisation for cultural diversity and racial equity and representation in creative arts organisations in Australia. And we've also got the incredible support of the Centre for Creative and Cultural Research here in the University of Canberra. So big shout out to Paul and our friends from CCCR at the University of Canberra that made this happen. And you'll also see this Canberra Diverse Artist Forum. We made that up. So you are the Canberra Diverse Artist Forum. Surprise! So this is us just doing a soft launch of what could be the Canberra Diverse Artist Forum. So you are the inaugural Canberra Diverse Artist Forum. Cue sound. We really wanted to use that. So today, just to tell you a little bit about what we'll be doing, we've got an incredible panel of culturally diverse artists who will be joining us here with me today, and you'll get to hear a lot from them. They are from a lot of varying cultural backgrounds. They are also from a diverse arts practices as well, and they are from diverse stages of their careers. Now, I feel like I should have had a bingo card, so you could all tick off every time I say diverse, emerging, and then we could have the winner takes home brownies, but we can still do that. So without me rambling on, I'm going to introduce the wonderful speakers that we're going to have a conversation with. Some housekeeping rules before we get started. We are recording this conversation for later documentation and archiving. We've also got some friends joining us online. So just want to put that disclaimer out there. If you would prefer not to have yourself recorded, or if you have any concerns, please do let Maleen or let us know after, and we can discuss that. And also toilets, you can just go out this door, and the toilets and accessible toilets are to your right. And with that, I'm going to introduce our wonderful panel for today. Cue music. And so our first panelist for today is Janhavi Salvi. Go Janhavi! So Janhavi is an Indian artist working within visual and media arts based in Canberra. And Janhavi loves crafting experiences that change the status of the viewer from being a classic mute spectator to a participant. And this is something we can talk about as we go. She aims to bring about communication between the viewer and the work to make them co-authors of the work. And Janhavi happily welcomes even the most basic response of emotion, even that of a chuckle. And her practice is driven by the aim to create pieces that move away from the please do not touch conditioning to a more liberal form of engagement that encourages touching and tampering with the work. And alongside working with the CCCR, Janhavi is also a junior creative producer at You Are Here Canberra, which she will also talk to in our conversation, and is currently on the board of Tributary Projects, an artist-run initiative in Canberra. So welcome, Janhavi. Thank you for being here. And up next, we've got Deni Dominguez. Come on up, Deni. Deni is a seasoned Mexican performing artist with a rich and diverse background. Deni holds a bachelor's degree in contemporary dance from Universidad Veracruzana and a specialization in cultural management and cultural policies from Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana. Throughout her career, she has worked as a dancer, a teacher, a choreographer, and puppeteer, engaging with contemporary dance, physical theater, buto, improvisation, stop-motion animation, and shadow theater. In Mexico, she collaborated closely with the deaf community and founded Retumba El Interior, Deaf Dance, a company dedicated to inclusive dance practices. She has been based in Canberra for the past year, where she participated in Ausdance ACT, Dance Week 2024 and 2025, the Braddon Busking Festival 2025, and also Deni was also a performer in one of our robotic arts and performance and people performance pieces that we recently developed. Welcome, Deni. As you can see, we really thought this through. Yeah. And we've got our next speaker is Dr. Bilquis Ghani. Thanks, Bilquis. Dr. Bilquis Ghani is a lecturer in arts at the University of Canberra. Her research focuses on the mobilization of creative process through moments of social and cultural rupture. Bilquis is lead for the Huna Symposium, a collective of academics and artists creating spaces of decolonization, discourse and collaboration between practice and theory. She's also on the board of directors for the Hadia Foundation, an organization who run mobile libraries, multivitamin distribution, and emergency support in Afghanistan. Bilquis's book, Sociology from Arts Praxis in Afghanistan, Expression and Resistance in Kabul, will be released by Palgrave Macmillan in November 2025. Congrats, Bilquis. And Also noteworthy is that before returning to academia, Bilquis was also the head of inclusion at the Sydney Opera House. Welcome, Bilquis. Thank you for being here. And we've got, last but not least, we've got Irfan Master. Thanks, Irfan. Irfan Master. Do it again. Irfan Master is an award-winning author of novels, short stories, poetry, and plays. His debut novel, A Beautiful Lie, published by Bloomsbury, was shortlisted for the Waterstones Children's Book Prize and the Branford Bowes... did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. Branford Bowes Award for Debut Authors and translated into 10 languages. His second novel for young adults, Out of Heart, Bonnier Books, was longlisted for the Carnegie Medal and UKLA Award. Irfan's short fiction has also been published in numerous anthologies. Irfan is a passionate advocate for creative and literacy projects in the community and has developed programs and mentored young people to gain access in the creative arts. He has worked with English Pen, the British Council, and the Avon Foundation to deliver writing workshops in schools and prisons. He is currently a PhD candidate at the University of Canberra, where he also teaches. Welcome, Irfan. So that's our wonderful panel. Thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor and privilege to be among all of you. And just reading the bio suddenly reminds you of all the incredible work and the incredible artists that we have here in Canberra. And I must also give a shout out that we have some incredible artists in the audience as well. So shout out to all of you out there. So I know I did a spiel of all your bios and all this incredible work that you've done, but I think to start off, the best way to get to know an arts practitioner is to also hear them speak about their work, and then you hear the vigor and the passion that comes through with it. So my first question to all of you is, I'd like to hear more from you about the communities you create from and the communities you create for. So let's dive into your work. And how does your cultural background, or does your cultural background actively shape your creative practice? And if it does, can you share a specific example where that comes through and what creating means for you? Irfan?
Thanks, Piumi. I think so. I wake up every day and look in the mirror and think, still brown, which is a radical choice. It's, even though I joke, I guess it's hard to break in to write a story that is other often, especially in publishing, and there's been huge problems in British publishing, which is my landscape and world. But I never thought that strongly about it. My stories came from memory, stories that my grandfathers told me. So my first story, the novel I wrote was called A Beautiful Lie, published by Bloomsbury, and it was about partition in India. And for whatever reason, when my granddad used to come, he never used to tell me anything about it. And I was always just quite curious because he left India in 1947 and he joined one of the long convoys, and he almost starved to death, and when he arrived he almost died. But he was very reluctant to tell the stories because he used to say, in Urdu, he used to say beta, which is like son. Why do you want to hear about those stories? Those stories are terrible. Those are terrible stories. And I said, well, I'm really interested. I was really frustrated and angry on his part. And he said, look at what I've got now. I built a life and I have children and all that. But he told me lots of stories, and then when I was ready to write and when I wanted to put down something into a novel, they just all came back. And so it wasn't really a choice. It was just what it was. And once I started putting it down, I realized that it was the right choice as well. It was a story of when I emerged a long time ago. And so it became really important to me because it was about partition, and nobody had written about partition, particularly for young adults at the time. It was one of the first novels. And now, they put it on the curriculum, they use it in colleges and schools, they built resources around it. So I'm really proud of that more than anything. And 15 years later, They're doing a stage play now as well. And so it just keeps ticking over. But I wrote it like as if I was in a dream. I don't even remember writing it. I just remember sitting down, then it was done, and then it was published, and then it went from there. And so, yeah, that's what I put front and center.
Thanks, Irfan. And yeah, I think I resonate with that idea of sometimes the stories you want to tell, it's not an active choice, and it's just that something that comes through with your experience, your history, your life. And with that, Deni, tell us a little bit about your work. I remember recently watching you perform in front of the Canberra Centre for Oz Dance Week. A very moving performance about being born again, and for me, this idea of emerging to kind of came through that. That was something I watched you do, Deni. Tell us a little bit about your work.
In general, just
one piece of art that really speaks to you about your voice as an artist.
Actually, I sometimes have different things. In this moment, I have 3 works existing. One is a Bobby puppet named Balloon Head. It's very, actually the idea is very stupid, but it works and I love it. Another one is a shadow theater. And the story I tell in this shadow theater, made with recycled materials, is from ancient stories from Mexico, based in the cosmogony of Mexican. And the performance Piumi says is I thought was a piece of contemporary dance, very abstract, but oh my geez, not at all, because this piece I start just for the desire for dance, for move my body and dance with a very loved friend. Her name is Jayasuriya. She's from Peru. And her dance is so natural. She inspires about a leaf, a tree, the wind, and I really wanted dance together. And for the dance week, let's see with our build a structure for an improvisation, and a lot of things happened because it came like a therapeutic for us, because she and, well, sorry, my English is not fabulous. Both had certain feelings about migration, about inner child, about challenge. So this performance make itself a little bit, and in some part I use a music. It's not pretty music. It is a voice ensemble. And the voices are like dissonance, because the singers are people of the very deep Mexican desert. The life is very hard there. And in this isolation, they made a form of sing, which is named Canto Cardenche. Cardenche is the spike of the cactus, and it's painful when gets in, and it's more painful when you pull it out. So this music is harsh, is rough, is painful and beauty, and almost disappear. But the institution, the Instituto de Bellas Artes de Mexico, the Institution of the Arts, it's rescued this art. So, and I realized that I don't, when my husband explained to my kids what I do, because he said, your mother take this form of art from the very deep desert of Mexico and dance with that in the center of the city of Canberra, Australia. So I realized that was powerful. So I like a migrant is like, like almost nothing. And suddenly it's like a have been stepped very hard in the heart of the city. And it's curious because the name of the dance, Be Reborn, is like start again and again and again. So that's what's.
Thanks so much, Deni. And I think that's so powerful also what you said about sometimes us creating, not really thinking about the end product, but the process itself being therapeutic and getting us somewhere, which takes me to some of the conversations we've had, Janhavi. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and what drives your work?
Yes, I think just an extension of what you and Irfan said, I think I really cannot sift the influence of my ethnicity or my culture or my background any more than I can of my perspective of the world, values and ideology. I think they all find a way to seep into my work, and I'd have to really try very hard to separate them. And I say that because that has always been the case. My first public showing was of a performance-based work that I did for my thesis when I was completing my master's, and it was called Word Pharmacy. And I was selling English as a language, and it was a room where anyone could walk in, and I was the pharmacist. And in one corner of the room there was Marathi, which is my mother tongue, that was endlessly printed because it feels like it's like my skin, it's unconditional to me. And English was what I was trading. And because in India I grew up with English riding the vehicle of high culture, English was expensive in my pharmacy. And so you had to give me money or put down your belonging, and we could discuss what word you wanted me to write. The only catch was this whole negotiation. During the whole negotiation, I was only speaking in Marathi, which was my mother tongue, and we had to figure out what I was saying for us to be able to barter words and make a constructive sentence. And so I think most of my work has always had some influence of my background and my upbringing.
Yeah. Thanks, Janhavi, also for bringing in that conversation of having to navigate language as well when we are, migrant artists or called artists here in Australia. Which brings me to you, Bilquis, your work in arts advocacy and some of the incredible humanitarian causes that you've been working on, as well as academia. Tell us a little bit about what drives you and your creative practice.
Thanks, Piumi, and I love that project, by the way. I think it's brilliant. It's so good. Look, you said pharmacy, and I was thinking about, even before you said pharmacy, I was thinking about this experience. When somebody asks me about cultural background, I always remember the first time I realized I'm brown. It's funny, but it's true, because I was about 16 or 17, I was working in a pharmacy, and I was helping a lady with her script and what have you. Oh, yeah. Do you take Nurofen with that? And she was very happy, and she left. And it was such a funny moment because when the staff there told me to make tea, for me that was a really complicated thing to do because I knew inherently that it's not the tea that we drink. It's a different tea and there's some milk involved, which is blasphemous for Afghans, right? We don't put milk in tea. And so, I was always kind of thinking about, okay, so, Ian's going to need tea with like this much milk and this one's a skim milk thing, and it was really difficult for me, right? And I'm in the back and I'm making this tea and I'm doing these calculations and I'm navigating these things when in the front of the shop, this lady comes back and she says, oh, I have another question. And I was emerging from the back just in time to hear her say, I was talking to the little brown girl. And I remember going, oh, she's talking about me. Right? True story. I wish it wasn't. And I realized also, okay, all right, I see what's happening here. And I guess when I think about my practice and the work that I do in scholarship, it always comes back to that moment of navigating not just tea, right? But a moment of realization where the cultural background isn't just the lens through which I see, it's the point in time and space where the outside world meets me, right? And so I guess that's what frames, and even within the book, the book that's coming out very soon, I'm so proud of that. Like, it's so good. Can I just say, I'm leaning into that one. Thank you. I just have to say, that was a lot of work. But even within that, I have tried to weave these kinds of stories into it because I want to kind of deconstruct a little bit what we talk about when we say scholarship, academia, and the gatekeeping that happens there is, I think, the creative process and that kind of thinking in a scholarly and robust research way. I don't think you can do that well without creativity. And so that's kind of where I come from.
Thanks, Bilquis. I think that's such a great segue into what we're going to talk about next, which is, negotiating these stories that we want to tell, and then we come into the grants landscape and the arts landscape where we kind of have to negotiate that with commercial viability, accessibility, and all of those things that then start coming into the conversation. Which brings me to this idea of emerging. What does it mean to emerge? For some reason, when I hear emerging, I see myself submerged in water, and it's like kind of coming up for air, which is not far off from the migrant experience as well, because that first 6 months is kind of you drowning in PR and visa paperwork, and then you emerge from that, and then you're trying to navigate all the other things of just life stuff as well. And especially when you have, it's also complex if you are coming from a background of, you have an established practice back in your home country, and then what does it mean to emerge or re-emerge, and how do we navigate these labels? And again, sometimes with these labels, also coming from a good place to provide the accessibility for artists to, begin their practice. So my question to you is, with the arts sector and navigating this idea of an emerging artist, especially in a funding and grants landscape, what does being an emerging artist mean to you as a culturally diverse creative? How do you navigate or resist this label?
Who goes first? Me? I remember right when I was completing, I had finished, I think, my master's reading a theory. I think it was given by a Finnish photographer. I forget his name, but it's called the bus station theory. And he says, at the moment that you're about to leave your art school and you are going to go into the art world, you have to select your form and you have to select your style and you have to select what path you're entering the art world into. Think of that moment as a bus station where there are 25 platforms and there's 10 buses plying from each of those platforms. You get to sit in any one of your choice. You ride a few stops. Every stop is maybe a year in an artist's life. You ride a couple of stops. You get down at the third one. You walk into a gallery, show people your work. People are going to go, oh, nice, but it reminds me of yada yada. And you're going to walk off saying, I am not original. I am not unique. And am I derivative? And you're going to call a cab. You're going to go back to the bus stop. You're going to get in another bus. ride a few stops, and the same thing's going to happen again and again. And at the end of the theory, he says, the only thing you have to promise yourself is to stay on the damn bus. And his reasons are because being original takes time, because carving out a career in the arts takes time. And I think this theory is such a marvelous description of the process I find myself in. I feel like I'm on that bus. And within this landscape of being culturally diverse, I think my addition is I probably don't get the best seat on the bus. Maybe I find myself seated next to that weird wheel arch, and my feet are crouched. But that makes me think that I do really know when the road gets bumpy and that I can't sleep or take a nap during that ride.
That's such a great analogy, Janhavi, not just for culturally diverse creatives. I think it's for creatives in general, because it is that perseverance to just be on the bus and take that journey. So thank you for that. And with that, I'd like to turn to you, Irfan. With your creative practice in the UK, and now you're also you're doing your PhD here in the University of Canberra. What is your take on navigating this idea of emerging or aspiring?
Seeing as I'm very old, I feel like I've emerged, and now I'm on a downward spiral, to be honest. No, it's interesting. It's an interesting question, because I spent 20 years trying to cultivate a professional sort of publication record in England, and then I promptly left and came here. My wife's Australian. My little boy was born here, and so it was very much a case of starting again. But I really wanted to keep a low profile, because just trying to be father and be present and all that kind of stuff. But I have a tendency to stand around and things start happening around me. But people come to me and say, "Hey, do you want to get involved with this?" And I can't say no. Bilquis was a bit like that. I met Bilquis at something, and she said, "Come with me." And then we went to a room, and she said, "Right, you're part of the project now." And like, okay, cool. And so there's laws of attraction there, I think. But in terms of my writer profile, I've kept a lid on it for a long time. Here, I was here in 2015 to 2018. I returned at the end of 2022. Met my fabulous supervisor, Jen Webb. She's around somewhere. Jen, give me a yo. Yo, right. And she took me under her wing, and I now am finding community after being quite isolated, and isolating myself as well. Mainly because I'm old and stubborn, and I feel like I'm quite happy with my practice. But also I met really fantastic people in the CCCR. There's Paul there, there's Jen there, Bilquis there, Kim's in the crowd, there's people. And one of the great things about a university environment outside an artistic environment is, when you say you're doing research, they say, "Oh, what's your research about?" Which you won't get when you're walking around the streets, where if you say to someone you're doing a PhD, everyone says, "Oh, look, what's the time? I've got to be elsewhere, anywhere but here. I've got to, catch a bus," which is radical in Canberra. So I found that quite a radical thing, to talk to people who are interested in your research, interested in your history, interested in what you're able to do. Poor Paul sitting in the front row there, but he indulges me knocking on his door and say, "Hey, let's do this," and he's like, "Yes, very good, yes," and then we'll see, and then off you go. You know what I mean? But he'll listen to me and he'll talk to me. He'll say, "Oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" and all that kind of stuff. So I'm quite grateful to be re-emerging in another environment where I could show my history, my publications, to a completely different region of the world that I am not attuned to. But also I feel like I'm living two lives, because my life kind of begins, my wife and child go to sleep, and then my entire thing starts again at night, where I'm talking to people in the UK on UK time. So I feel like I'm lucky, but also I'm exhausted. So.
Yeah, I recently had a friend who told me it's hard to be both an artist and a human at the same time, that it's very exhausting, which I think I can relate to as well. And which brings me to this, like the idea of navigating family, and also what it means in a regional context. Just before we started, I was talking to a friend in the audience, and we were talking about how sometimes emerging in a regional area also feels different. There's more of a sense of a community, of everyone being excited to have you, and with the community being smaller, like there's less of the big city life and the level of competition that comes with the industry as well. Which brings me to Deni. What is your thought on this idea of emerging? And you yourself, you're a mom, and you have, like, you know, like most of us, you have the full-time job that pays the bills, and then you've got, like, you are out, such an inspirational person, you are out busking and creating this incredible shadow puppetry out at night. So tell us your idea of how you navigate this, you know, like, what does it mean to you?
No, still yours. Well, about the emergent, sorry. Where I come from, emerging is like of euphemism about precariousness. It's like artistic elite, bureaucratic, seeing the artists, the young artists, and well, let's see. You can go there and you do your thing. Let's see what happens. And they won't do anything for you, and instead says, let's see what happened. And when the years go by, and you realize you never fully emerge, not because personal failure, instead because the system and this bureaucratic, artistic elite never help you. And for me, in this day, it's fully surprised and very compliment. Be considered like emergent, because let's say I don't get in any younger, and gives me an halo of promising youth. But actually resonates with me because living my country, my practice, and appear here is reborn and starting again. In Mexico, I was having a practice. I have projects, but it's very hard. Always needed working something else for living, and also take these resources for financial projects. Sometimes I get support of government institutions, but the terms was very out of the reality. When I was working with deaf community, for example, I have a financial support for 1 year for work with them. In Mexico, the deaf community is very vulnerable people. They don't have any access to education, work, rights, basic rights. And in that financial support, I not be able for paying fees, for paying the time and the work of the dancers. And there was amazing dancers, and very diverse in age and backgrounds. But in the element in common, it was they very vulnerable. And I must figure out how can pay for his work and his time and the training and travel, because the resources was labeled in what kind of things you can spend it, but I can pay for, actually. And, well, sorry about the tangent. Yeah, and I think in this return to emerge again here, I feel like it's a path very long. It's a lonely path. Find community, very little, a little bit, and diverse community in the way, but that loneliness is also I think the other side of the coin is certain freedom, because that loneliness erases your past and expectations, and that is very refreshing. So it's like a renew, and I feel like undead, like a zombie. Me again.
Thanks, Deni. And I want to bring up that fact that you brought the flip side of it as well, and that's something I can relate to as well. Sometimes when you're a CARM artist or a migrant artist who's come from an arts background, like for example in Sri Lanka, we don't have an established arts industry per se. Just like in Mexico, it's the blood, sweat, and tears of independent artists who are censored, and like all these, like, who kind of fight and thrive every day to keep the industry alive. And then when you actually emerge into Australia, there's also a big gratitude. Sometimes I remember coming to Sydney and some of my friends being like, again, like, there's still a lot more to be done, I think, in the arts landscape in Australia as well. But I had friends who are like, there's not enough funding. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There is funding. Period. So I think I like the fact that you brought out this flip side where you do see opportunities as well, which brings me to you, Bilquis. What is your take on this idea of emerging and these different labels, as well as having been on the flip side of the institutional end of things? What is your take on this?
Look, I think that's really interesting. I'm conscious, I was told 2.5 minutes for a response, and then there's a sound effect that happens, and I'm really scared of that.
Yeah, like the Oscars, we play you off.
I'm scared of that sound effect. I keep looking on. Look, I think emerging is it's interesting because there's a lot that I want to throw at this. I guess where I'll start is there's emerging in terms of emerging into the industry, so that being new to an industry or a space, like what you're saying, right? So I think that's one layer of it, and this is, I think, why my mind gets a bit higgledy-piggledy when we talk about emerging, because I just see these layers of which one do you mean. There's emerging within your own art practice, which I think should be an emerging that never stops. I think it's a continuous navigation of, and I think that's what you're saying, is it's like that zombie kind of, I'm coming back, you can't get rid of me, I'm not done yet. That kind of emerging of reconceptualizing and thinking. And I think when we think about academia, for example, I'm absolutely emerging in academia. I'm such a newbie, I am so shiny. But, and that's kind of the emerging, I mean, into a space, into an industry or what have you. But in terms of the practice and the praxis of it, I think that it has been there since I was very young. That pharmacy story, for example, I think I've been thinking about the same kinds of concepts that I continue to explore in the scholarship that I now produce. And I think what academia gives me and what scholarship gives me is the language to be able to articulate that. And it reminds me of, being in my second year of undergrad when 9/11 happened and walking through Macquarie University and seeing it on the screens and realizing that something is wrong with the reporting on this situation and not having the language to express that. I think that is a continuous emergence of self, but there is also the emergence that you can be new to a space, and that's a very linear way of thinking about emerging as well, which is really northern-centric kind of, and we can get into that. But I do want to add another layer that intersects with all of those things. And I think you, as a person who embodies a person of color and being an artist or an academic or what have you, is you're usually assumed to be emerging. And if you're not emerging, you're established, and you're usually established for insert here, right? I am really, established as an artist who explores cultural diversity X, Y, and Z, right? In fact, I think we have a lot more to offer. We're complex, nuanced individuals that have, entire worlds of living to bring to the table. And in that we're not emerging, right? And I think each of us have explained like the wealth of narrative. I always talk about homo fabulous, the concept that each one of us are half human, half story, and that's what we bring. I think I'm going to shut up now. I think, yeah.
I think I'm gonna add to that also. Sometimes when we are also, we also get smitten by the imposter syndrome a little bit. I feel like we also begin to have preconceived notion of what the arts landscape offers as well, and what you said about we each come with our own story, and then sometimes we navigate the institutional arts landscape and we think, okay, I've got two stories I want to tell, one more overarchingly human, I mean any story is human, but then I've got this migrant story and I've got this funding application I need to apply to. Which story do I pick? Do I pick my migrant narrative, which is the better pitch, or
it's such an interesting point, and I've talked about this before as well. How do you firstly articulate yourself in a context? And absolutely, I think if there's funding opportunities out there for emerging artists, go for it. Use that. Why not? Because there's truth to it, and you use what you can, right? But it's such an interesting navigation of the self, right? Is to what extent do I bring me, but to what extent do I need to dilute that to be okay, to be the good migrant as well?
And to also Deni's, Irfan's and Janhavi's point about just being on the bus and telling the story that is true to you, because I actually unlearned some of those things. So I was in conversation at a writers program at Sydney Theatre Company where I brought this question up, and actually the STC artistic director was actually just tell the bold story. That's what we are looking for. I mean, look at productions like Counting and Cracking. You tell your story and that is what we are looking for. And I'm I had a preconceived notion of what I should be telling, and then I have this internal censorship as well. So it is also about really telling the story that you want to tell, and we all come with our own story.
Or choosing not to. I was in conversation with somebody a little while back, and I was like, not everybody has a right to your story as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And having talked about that, then I want to come to something that all of us, whether, from any background, this just coming back to, being an artist, being a human, can we do both? And that just exhaustion of sustaining yourself as an artist. We are currently living in a very crazy political landscape as well, all over, and we are exhausted and drained by that, and we've got we've got life, we've got families, and Thursday's laundry day, and you're here listening to us, and we've got all these things going on, and then we are also building sustainable careers as artists. What does it mean? Let's talk a little bit about being not just a culturally diverse artist, just being an artist. How do you navigate sustaining yourself, sustaining your career? And in this process, I think we all talked about how important is community in building this. Irfan?
It's difficult. I can speak to the experience I had in England first. I think that would be easier, which was really difficult. With very few opportunities, very little money, to be that stubborn and proud, to just stick in there with little to no grants or very, very little money for the work you do, is very hard. And so you do end up leaning on your community, whether that's London is... See, there's a couple of things about London which is quite interesting. One is there's a great community, but also there's a sense of competition. And the sense of competition, which people don't like to talk about, is it kind of makes you better, because you look around and you go to events and you go to readings and you go to things and you think, wow, I really need to get my ass into gear and make and work and not complain and get on with it. On the flip side, I've known so many people who have fallen by the wayside and stopped creating and making because they just couldn't hang in there. So it's very, very difficult because they just didn't have, some of it's resilience, some of it's the lucky break, some of it is didn't meet the right people at the right time, whatever it may be. So I think it's quite tricky. And I haven't met too many writers who can sustain a practice of just writing without doing something else at the same time. That's just the truth of it. Whether that's working in a garden center or working in arts organizations or academia or teaching, whatever it may be, there's just no way around it. And rather than see that as a negative, I think that's just part and parcel of every single landscape. In Australia, in Canberra particularly, Canberra to me just feels like a pretty good place to tap into things, in terms of resources. There's 500,000 people in Canberra. I think there's 500,000 in the suburb I was living in, and everyone's fighting for the same amount of money. So here it feels a lot more relaxed, but there's something else that comes with that, I think, where I don't feel I'm as desperate or as edgy to create and make as I was in London. Some of it, I'm just older and in a different life phase as well, but I just don't feel it. And so I have to generate my own, I don't know what you want to call it, anxiety, stresses, whatever it may be, to make work and create work. And the stories are still there, but I just think I'm in a different zone as well. But it's two different cities, yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. I think a lot of us do kind of balance like the career or full-time, part-time careers in, if you're lucky in arts administration and you're doing kind of adjacent work, or we are all doing that, and then we are creating as well. In our free time is like when the passion projects come through.
Not free time.
Yes, good. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation which we will bring to you in our next panel. What is free time to an artist? Does it exist? Janhavi, you're also a producer. So you also kind of navigate your role as a producer as well as a creative. Tell us a little bit about what your take is on sustaining yourself as an artist.
Doing 2 jobs and looking for another one. I think, because you said the word competition, my brain's gone in another direction, because I come from the visual arts field, and I'll be able to talk more to that. I do think there is this weird affinity that the visual arts has to novelty, and sometimes I feel like we're all influenced by news values, and so all artwork has to be cutting edge, artists radical, ideas have to be mold shattering, and the list goes on. It feels like everything has to be so revolutionary that paradigms have to be set right now, that it becomes very difficult to find making that kind of work sustainable. But what I like to do is tell myself, we've been making art for God knows how long. Man has been carving out time to make, to mark, and to build, despite having to fight starvation or cold or predators, and I think the need for self-expression is a primitive creative urge. I think building community helps you tap into that and learn how to access it. But I think building critical community is important because I think I've recently learned this from being a producer is that there's a bit of a difference in saying I'm an artist and saying I like making work, because wanting to make more work is discipline. It requires you to show up. It requires you to show up on time and put in the time and put in the effort. And that knowing of the idea of the artist being chaotic and messy is all a myth. I think building sustainable careers in this industry means staying at it and being disciplined.
That's such, yeah.
Can I just add as well that we also come from communities where most of the people we love don't ever read our work or look at our work as well, just to put that out there as well. Because, they'll turn up at the launch, but, and there's, free drinks and food. And they'll buy your books and they'll send it to auntie in Boston, California, India, but they won't read your stuff, you know what I mean? So there is, everything is self-sustaining. There is no actual support for your practice from your community until you engage with the community. And usually that community is, they don't understand what you do, how you do it, and how your practice works. So it's very difficult to sell yourself within your own context. A lot of people are very proud of you, but if you asked them what they were proud of, they couldn't really tell you exactly, apart from the fact that your name was on a book or whatever. And so it's a hard one to bear. I mean, me and Bilquis talked about this. You make your peace with it, but it'd be nice to have engagement. But they just see you as that person, but they don't see you as that person in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, Janhavi, I think it's so good, like what you brought up about, like, whatever background, experience you come from, the fact that understanding that nothing is given to you. It is grit, hard work. Behind anything you do, whoever you are, you need the hard work. You need to show up. You need to get on the bus and just keep going. And to your point, Irfan, that idea from and the need for us to move as an arts community, this idea of competition to community, because we need each other, like understanding how much we need each other. And I think the competition is not something, that is something the arts landscape, I think, breeds again due to scarcity. I think we talked about like the revised strategy and us being in an economy of scarcity as well. And it's just something that is bred with that scarcity, competition. But again, the beauty of working in regional areas, you have a stronger sense of community as well. Which brings me to you, Deni. And something we love about you is sometimes I'm here, I'm like, oh no, I don't have grants, boo-hoo. And then Deni's out there, I'm like, I'm creating, you create for the pure passion for it, and maybe things will come. Just get on the bus and keep going. And that's something you do incredibly well. And I'm always inspired by you. So tell us about your idea of, navigating all these different roles and sustaining yourself.
Yeah. I think it's the good thing about being from somewhere else, because you already came precarized. I like the bad life. So in Mexico, it still exists that concept, the artist floating in the in the air. No need to pay rent or food. Huh? So the official ways are absolutely out of a real practice, a real development of artistic products. It's connected with, for example, when I was most young than now, initiate my artistic practice and finding workshop and teaching and for living, and finding how which kind of things I like create with other people, and and build community. And then I become a mother of two. So it's a pause, and when you re-emerge, it's like you shouldn't. You stick to that idea, the artistic, floating artist, ethereal. So, as independent artist, it's like always always start with nothing. You have your body, so dance. So, and when I came here in Canberra, direct from Mexico, it's my first city here. I didn't know how works the world of the dance or the artistic things here, but I thought, well, I won't expect finish my research, figure out, and maybe know powerful people, or just if I have my body and there is the street free and ready, so just jump. I did research, of course, because I don't want to I did my research about busking because I don't want. I didn't want. I imagine myself dancing and a police officer in front of me, but I'm safe. So it's like I think it's not so difficult here. Because first and nothing, you don't need any permission for busking. Just jump. And I can find people who stop her way to work or the normal life for doing a pause and just look that happened there, and people who want to share the creative play. And I always said I don't have a business mind. I feel like a craft person. And that is for, by now, my projects are very little. For example, the Be Reborn, two friends playing in the street. And my shadow theater, it's, if you see it, it's like the garbage bin, right? No. Because it's just a case and a bunch of recycled materials. So I lost my telephone. And I don't need the big products. It's not complicated. Any day I can go out and do it. So it's very handled. If the project is too small, maybe in the future I will find a way how did more bigger things, but I need figure out how, and I think I need more time, a couple of years maybe. I hope so. And about community. I knew person of association, a dance association, and a little shy, asking, well, I don't know how can I afford a forum at a little theater for or a venue for rehearsal, etc. And the lady was, oh yeah, you can afford a forum. It's free. You just need to pay the technician fee, like 200. Yeah, Australian dollars. Yeah, sure. Of course, that is not an option for me. You know? So the streets are okay. And in the streets, I love not just for it's available and free. So instead, there is a magic in the connection with people. A lot of crazy things happen to me there. But that every interaction with the people, from a picture and go, a more longer interaction or deep interaction, are amazing. The last time I was busking with my shadow theater, I was happy. Children's was here, and in front of me there is a homeless guy with crazy hair and whole the whole attitude, with an umbrella, like on charge, direct of me, and was like, and then the show must go on, and he really go ¿cómo se dice hacia mí? Charge, so on charge. But he was so slowly that I thought, she's a character. So I choose truth. I choose belief. Sorry, in it was a character, and he are going to harm, doing, and he charged very slowly, and in the kids, the kid next to me, like, I think, really think he is gonna. And in the last point, he changed 90 degrees. Another guy, very young, seems like he lives in the street too. And the story of the shadow puppet is the hero journey. So it's a character who passed a series of tests for proof the purity of his soul. So every test is harder and harder, and he was very into the story. So he was with the size very straight of the shadows, and in each test the things get drawn for the character, and then, oh no, and the character approves it. And other thing pass, and the jaguar jump the character and rip the heart. And, oh no, poor guy. And yet everything goes well, and and he yelled at everyone, "Hey, people, came to see to this girl here in Canberra, get the coins." And he doesn't have any coin, so he took his mitten and gave to me like a tip. And of course I take it, grateful, but that mitten, it was so dirty. I swear I tried to preserve, I tried to wash in my house, but I put it in the sink, and a lot of black points, like, and with the moth killer, I sprayed it. And it's a rent home, so if the flies get in the home, no, it's a big problem with the moth killer in the bathroom. No, I couldn't preserve that thing, but I really appreciate his his gift.
Thanks, Deni, for that. And it's also about finding your audience, right? And like navigating, like really finding your audience, showing up, doing the work, and also what you talked about, Irfan, like showing up for each other's work, how much that means, and then promoting like each other's work as well, which I might, just because we are running out of time, I might move on to Bilquis. Tell us about, having now talked about, riding the bus, doing the work, and showing up for each other's work, and then finding these opportunities that we might sometimes miss but exist, like the opportunities that exist for us to create and preserve and sustain our careers. Tell us what you think about this idea of how we sustain ourselves as artists.
Look, I think Janhavi, you said something really interesting in terms of every time you create, you're expected to make like this huge paradigm shift, and I think that's the product of a lack of creativity on the part of funding bodies, for example. I think the paradigm shift needs to happen at the structural level, where we really value what the arts have to offer us, especially in times like this, and stop the kind of scarcity mindset that we've talked about, because it doesn't have to be scarce funding landscapes, right? And the funding that we do have often is catered for a particular type of artist with a kind of who can sustain an art speak or has the right networks or what have you, right? I think to be sustainable, what we need is to be looking beyond kind of short-term project-based funding and be thinking more in terms of long-term residencies, fellowships, and that kind of thing. Because I don't think we can ever overestimate the necessity for a creator, and I say that even as an academic, I'm not an artist, the necessity for space to think, right? I don't think we get enough space to just sit and think through a thing. It's this constant push to be finding the next wowie thing, right? And you just can't find the wowie thing when you're navigating noise and demand and competition and what have you. So I guess to be sustainable, I personally find those spaces not just in looking for community, but creating community for myself. And I think most of us here are new to Canberra. I think one of the things I've really enjoyed about Canberra is the ease with which I've been able to find and create and sustain and support community, because that's kind of the fertile ground from which creativity springs.
Yeah, and I think although we've run over, I didn't play anyone off because it was just such like it was necessary.
I was waiting for that
conversation.
bong sound to come from this corner.
And you're right. It's about, again, like coming back to this point of community, collaboration, and this need to realize that we do have this community to tap into, collaborate, and find pathways to create sustainably together. And the fact that we are actually in it together,
yep,
and not alone, I think realizing that is such a huge part, that you can't, an artist is a community of artists. Like, it's the community of artists that build who you are as an artist. Which brings me to, we've, I think, talked about a range of things, like kind of navigating labels, navigating different arts disciplines, experience, the challenges, the opportunities. But then I also want to end on a positive note of like gratitude, because there is a reason we are here. There's a reason we keep doing what we do. There's a reason we keep creating. And so just to wrap up, in a line or two, what are you truly grateful for in your journey here on the planet?
On the planet?
And Australia. On a human level. I mean, a bit existential there, but just in general, like what are you grateful for?
I think I'm really grateful for the fact that I think in Canberra, like Irfan said, there's such few people that we are truly in a space of omnidirectional experimenting. I think heaps of artists get to experiment, and by that I mean subsequently also have the space to fail and then try again. And I can never not be grateful for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Janhavi. And Irfan?
No, you're right. I am grateful for my mentors, the dream weavers, I like to call them. People that find you when you need them the most. One of mine's at the back of the room somewhere. She's probably hiding or left already. She never says no to me, which probably is not a good idea, really. But, she encourages ideas, she encourages innovation, she encourages process. She treats me like a writer in the world rather than a British Asian writer in the world. And I think half the thing, just building on Bilquis quickly, is that, a lot of the time we might not want to create a culturally appropriate work. It might just be a work. And one of these days we won't be on a diversity panel. It will just be a panel. And someone might ask us about our craft and what we think about when we're working and how we work and all that kind of stuff, which is a luxury not afforded to us a lot of the time. A lot of the time the questions are, so how does it feel to be a diverse artist, writer in the world? And thinking, I don't wake up every day thinking I'm a diverse person in the world. I just think I'm a person in the world. And so I'm hoping for that one day. I mean, in England, we sort of got together, a bunch of us, and just stopped doing diversity panels because it seemed that we were just rolled out to say the same things again and again. And we said, unless you want us on a panel, a mixed panel, and you want us to talk about things that you're asking other writers, then don't ask us anymore. So I hope for that day. But I'm grateful for my mentors and the people who listen to my ideas, no matter how far-fetched they might be.
Thanks, Irfan. And Deni?
I think the word freedom is very overused and not always said, but yes, I very grateful for that feeling of freedom, and it came from being for my own, from that loneliness. That allows me reinvent myself, and in some sense helps me to feel brave for doing street art, and also thinking, well, if I mess up tomorrow, nobody remember that. That anonymous is great for me. Also in this city, I think multiculturalism is very normal. It's like every day. That openness, and I think the people is available for looking different things, different cultural or artistic products in the streets or in any places, in any kind of venues. And it's like open to see different things. And it's like, oh, that's weird. No, I think it's the people is very interesting. And in other side, there is here in Canberra, the movement of the buskers is very strong, and people is very supportive with all of them. And I think they not just like, oh, poor guy. No, it's like it's interesting, supportive, and I think people really like it and really want for artistic products or kind of stuff to see in the streets. And also, I'm very grateful with an interaction and for all the creators and artist person I met here. Every person with I could share, and who are also wonderful human beings, and I feel very privileged with every collaboration, every interaction, and I admire them so much. And yeah.
Thanks so much, Deni. And Bilquis, what are you grateful for?
Look, I think pessimism is probably a luxury we don't have, despite all the poking that we've done this evening, right? We still can't fall into pessimism. It's such a luxury. Oh, well, you know. So I am grateful for lots of things. I'm really grateful for, they didn't pay me to say this. I'm grateful for the University of Canberra. Because having come from industry where you really, like, your weekends are the only time where you can have that space to be like, ponder and create and think. Here I've found this place where there's a network. I'm looking at you, Paul, and there's other people around as well. There's a network of people here who lift you. Right? So, you know, I have lots of things in my life that I'm proud of, but I think I'm proud of the friendship groups and networks of support that I've got the most, and I'm grateful for those. Yeah.
Thanks, Bilquis. And that brings me to what I'm grateful for. As I said, like, having moved from Sydney to Canberra, one of the first things we realized was how absolutely welcoming everyone was. How many coffees, without even me taking the initiative, suddenly was like, oh, you're here, come over to our theatre for a coffee, let's have a chat. And that just means the world. And like, the creative community has been just so incredible. So I think we have such a beautiful and vibrant community here in Canberra that we can reach out to, collaborate and work with. And I'm so grateful for all of you for being here. And that is what this community is all about. So thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. It means the world to us. And let's show up to our work. Let's keep striving. Let's keep this going. And because we've just run over, I know, like, this conversation, I think we can take our questions and discussions outside straight, because we've got some nibbles, refreshments. Please stay back. We've got some incredible people here in the room today from different, the independent artists. We've got people from different arts institutions here in Canberra. So let's talk, let's make some friends outside. And right before we wrap up, I want to give a huge shout out to Diversity Arts Australia that made this possible with their support, as well as the Centre for Creative and Cultural Research. Janhavi, Bilquis, thank you for allowing this to happen in this space. And our wonderful creative producer for tonight, Maleen Jayasuriya, for all the behind the scenes efforts for making this possible. And our wonderful collaborative robotics teams, who, again, always shows up for everything arts that is related to us. Buddhi, Nipuni, thank you so much. And thank you, Bilquis, Deni, Irfan, and Janhavi. Thank you for making this possible. Thank you, beautiful people, for being here. Let's take this outside. Let's have some snacks, chat to each other, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for being here.